I was sitting across from my son at the long walnut dining table when I said the word that shattered my life. No. The sound of it still echoes in my head. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 69 years old, and for more than 4 decades, I worked as a civil engineer in Boulder, Colorado. I designed schools, libraries, public buildings, places meant to hold people safely for generations. Structures built to last. I thought I'd built something unbreakable with my son too. I was wrong. But to understand how everything fell apart, you need to go back 6 months earlier, to a Tuesday morning in early spring. My phone rang just as I was pouring coffee. The caller ID flashed Daniel. My son didn't usually call this early. When I answered, his voice was buzzing with excitement. Mom, wait till you hear this. Natalie and I just bought a house. I smiled without even realizing it. That instinctive pride every parent feels, when your child sounds like they're winning at life. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I said. Where is it? Silver Ridge. 5 bedrooms. 4 baths. Huge windows. Mountain views. There's even a temperature-controlled wine room. Silver Ridge. One of the most expensive neighborhoods in the state. Something tightened in my chest, but I ignored it. Daniel was 38. A successful commercial property broker. He made good money. He must know what he's doing, right? I'm proud of you, I said carefully. You have to come see it. This weekend. We're hosting a little get-together. That Saturday I drove up the winding road to the address he sent. And when I saw the house I had to pull over. It wasn't just big. It was a statement. Steel beams. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Clean, aggressive lines. The kind of house architects fight to get published. The kind I once dreamed of designing. Before life, responsibility, and single motherhood reshaped my priorities. Natalie opened the door. She was flawless. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Wrapped in something expensive enough that I didn't need to ask the brand. Evelyn, she said brightly. Isn't it stunning? He never called me Mom. Never had. Inside, the house felt more like a luxury showroom than a home. Marble floors. Custom lighting. Furniture that looked like art and cost more than my first year's salary. As Daniel gave me the tour, my engineer brain started doing the math. This place wasn't just expensive. It was dangerous. In the kitchen, Natalie poured wine and casually mentioned it was a rare French vintage. I noticed the bottle alone probably cost more than my monthly groceries. So, Daniel asked, watching my face. What do you think? It's impressive, I said. You've done well. He exchanged a glance with Natalie. A look that made my stomach drop. Actually, Daniel said, sitting down, there's something we wanted to talk to you about. Of course there is. We moved to the living room. Natalie perched delicately on a white couch that probably wasn't meant for real people. Daniel leaned forward like he was pitching an investor. Mom, you know I appreciate everything you've done for me. College. The wedding. All of it. I nodded slowly. The mortgage on this house is heavy, he continued. About $920,000. I said nothing. You've told me before that you've saved close to $2 million for retirement, he said carefully. Between investments, pension, everything. My heart began to pound. Natalie leaned in, her smile polite but sharp. In my family, parents help their children establish stability. It's just how responsible families work. I felt my jaw tighten. I already helped, I said quietly. I paid for Daniel's education. I paid for your wedding. And we're grateful, Daniel said quickly. But this is different. This is about our future. Our kids' future. You don't even have children yet, I said. Not yet, Natalie replied coolly. But when we do, they'll need the right environment. Daniel pulled out his phone and tapped a calculator. If you could help us with $300,000, we could lower the monthly payments enough to breathe. We'd pay you back. Eventually. I stared at my son. At the boy who used to build bridges out of cardboard and tape at my kitchen table. At the man who was now asking me to gamble my final years so he could live beyond his means. And that's when I said it. No. The room went silent. And in that silence, everything changed. Daniel stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. No, he repeated. Mom, what do you mean no? I mean, I said slowly, forcing my voice to stay steady, I'm not giving you $300,000. Natalie's smile vanished instantly. But you have it, she snapped. You just said you've saved nearly $2 million. That money is my retirement, I replied. It's what I worked my entire life for. Daniel stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Mom, I'm not asking for all of it. Just enough to help us get established. You are established, I said. You make over $170,000 a year. More than I ever earned. Natalie let out a sharp laugh. That's not the point, she said. The point is what family does for each other. Something inside me cracked. I stood up, my hands trembling, not from fear but from rage I'd swallowed for years. Family, I said quietly. Let me tell you what family is. They both froze. Family is raising a child alone after his father dies, I continued. Family is working 60-hour weeks so he can graduate without debt. Family is teaching him how to stand on his own feet, not handing him a cushion every time he jumps too high. Daniel's face flushed red. So that's it, he said. After everything you're just abandoning us? The word hit me like a slap. I am not abandoning anyone, I said. I am refusing to bankroll a lifestyle you can't afford. Natalie crossed her arms. Unbelievable. You care more about money than your own son. I felt something go cold inside my chest. No, I said. I care enough about my son to say no when yes would ruin him. Daniel's voice rose. You're selfish. You're choosing comfort over family. I picked up my purse. I'm choosing responsibility, I said. And I'm choosing my future. As I walked toward the door, Daniel shouted after me. Don't expect to be part of our lives if you won't support us. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I've supported you your entire life, I said. Just not this. I drove home in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. That night I didn't sleep. 4 days my phone stayed silent. No calls. No texts. No explanation, just absence. 2 weeks later the letter arrived. A thick envelope. Heavy paper. A downtown law firm's name printed across the top. I opened it at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold beside me. They were suing me. My son, my own child, was suing me for $600,000. The claim was surreal. They accused me of making verbal promises, of creating reasonable financial expectations, of causing emotional distress by refusing to help. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. My hands shook as I called my attorney, Michael Reed, a man who had helped me plan my estate for decades. He knew my late husband. He'd watched Daniel grow up. After I finished reading the letter aloud, there was a long pause. Evelyn, he said quietly. I'm so sorry. Can they actually do this? I asked. Anyone can file a lawsuit, he said. Winning is another matter. Did you ever promise money for a house? Never, I said firmly. Not once. Then we fight, he said. But it won't be cheap. How much? 25 to 30,000. Maybe more. I closed my eyes. Do it. The following months were a blur of legal hell. Depositions. Financial disclosures. Endless paperwork. I handed over bank records, retirement accounts, every private detail of my life. Their lawyer treated me like a villain hoarding wealth. During my deposition, Daniel sat across from me and wouldn't meet my eyes. Isn't it true, the attorney asked, that you've financially supported your son throughout his life? I raised him, I said. That's not a transaction. So you created an expectation of continued support? Michael objected, but the seed had been planted. Later, I read Daniel's deposition transcript. He had told friends, coworkers, everyone, that I was going to pay, that he counted on it, that I always came through. I stared at the page, heartbreaking all over again. Then Michael's investigator uncovered the truth. In the 6 months before buying the house, Natalie had spent nearly $50,000 on luxury shopping, a new car and a European vacation. At the same time, Daniel's commissions had dropped sharply. They weren't drowning because of me. They were drowning because they refused to live within reality. Still, the judge denied dismissal. We were going to trial. The night before court, I sat alone in my study, staring at an old photo of Daniel at graduation, his arm around me, both of us smiling. Where did I fail you? I whispered. And that's when I remembered my husband's voice years ago. Loving a child doesn't mean saving them from consequences. Court was coming. And whatever happened next would change us forever. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No dramatic chandeliers. No grand marble pillars. Just wood benches, muted light, and the quiet weight of decisions that ruin or redeem lives. I wore my charcoal gray suit, the one I'd last worn to Daniel's wedding. It felt strange, like wearing a memory that no longer belonged to me. Daniel sat at the plaintiff's table beside Natalie. He looked thinner. Older. His shoulders slumped forward like he was already carrying the verdict. Natalie, on the other hand, looked sharp and furious, jaw tight, eyes hard, heels crossed with precision. The judge entered. Judge Eleanor Whitmore. Late 60s. Steel gray hair. A face that had seen every excuse imaginable and believed very few. Natalie's attorney opened first. She painted me as a cold, wealthy mother who abandoned her son when he needed help most. She spoke about family obligation, about reasonable expectations, about how my refusal devastated a young couple trying to build a future. She made it sound like Daniel was moments away from homelessness. Then Michael stood. Your Honor, he said calmly, this case is not about love. It's about entitlement. The word hung in the air. These plaintiffs purchased a home they could not afford while living far beyond their means. When the defendant, after already paying for college and a wedding, refused to drain her retirement, they chose to sue her. The judge's eyebrow lifted slightly. For the next day, evidence poured in. Bank statements, credit card records, testimony from Daniel's coworkers who admitted he'd bragged that I was handling the down payment adjustment. Before he ever asked me. Before I ever said no. Then it was my turn. I took the stand with shaking knees and a steady voice. Do you love your son? The attorney asked. Yes, I said without hesitation. Do you want him to succeed? Of course. Then why refuse to help him? I swallowed. Because paying for a house he cannot afford is not help, I said. It's enabling. Enabling what? Enabling irresponsibility, I said. Enabling the belief that someone will always clean up his mistakes. She scoffed. So you justify selfishness as parenting? Michael objected. Sustained. But the doubt lingered in the air. Then Michael questioned me. In your career, Mrs. Harper, did you ever oversee a project that failed? Yes. What did you do? I learned from it. Did anyone rescue you financially? No. What would have happened if they had? I paused. I wouldn't have grown. The judge leaned forward. Then something unexpected happened. Judge Whitmore called both attorneys to the bench. They whispered for a long moment. Then she looked directly at me. Mrs. Harper, she said, did you ever promise, verbally or in writing, to give your son money for a house? No, Your Honor. He turned to Daniel. Mr. Harper, please stand. Daniel rose slowly. When you purchased a home you could not afford, she asked, did it occur to you that you were gambling with your financial future? Silence. Did it occur to you, she continued, that your mother at her age needs her savings to survive? Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. And finally, she said gently, did you consider that suing your mother might permanently destroy your relationship with her? Yes, he whispered. Then why did you do it? Daniel looked at Natalie. She stared straight ahead. I thought, he said quietly, that she owed me. The courtroom went still. The judge removed her glasses. Your mother owed you nothing, she said firmly. She raised you, educated you, sacrificed for you. What you do with that foundation is your responsibility. She replaced her glasses. This case is dismissed. My breath caught. Additionally, she continued, the plaintiffs will pay the defendant's legal fees in full. The gavel fell. Just like that, it was over. I should have felt relief. Victory. Justice. Instead, I felt hollow. Daniel and Natalie left without looking at me. I watched my son walk away, shoulders hunched, marriage unraveling behind him. Michael placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, he said. But that night, sitting alone in my quiet house, I wasn't so sure. I'd won the case. But I had lost my son. Or so I thought. Because what happened next changed everything. The house felt emptier after the trial. Not quieter, just heavier. Every room held memories of a boy who used to race toy cars down the hallway and ask 1,000 questions about how the world worked. Now those same walls echoed with silence and doubt. That evening Michael came by. We sat in my study, the same place where I'd helped Daniel with homework and college applications. He poured 2 fingers of whiskey and slid a glass toward me. "There's something you should know," he said carefully. I looked up. "About the case?" "No," he said. "About Daniel." My chest tightened. "Your husband arranged something before he passed away," Michael continued. "A trust." I blinked. "A trust?" "Yes. Separate from your will. It's in Daniel's name." My hands trembled. "How much?" $500,000. The air left my lungs. "He wanted Daniel protected," Michael said. "But not enabled." I swallowed hard. "There are conditions," he added. "Of course there are," I whispered. "No access before age 40. No bankruptcies. No lawsuits against immediate family. And," he hesitated, "he must reconcile with you." Tears burned my eyes. My husband had seen this coming. He knew love without boundaries becomes a weapon. That night I barely slept. 2 years passed. Daniel didn't call. Didn't text. Communication came only through lawyers. Installment payments for legal fees. Small amounts. Petty maybe. But paid. I tried to move on. Then one October morning my doorbell rang. I opened the door and froze. Daniel stood there holding a paper bag. His hair was streaked with gray. His eyes looked tired but honest. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd read the lawsuit years earlier. He pulled out a thermos. "You always liked that local roast," he said. I remembered. My voice caught. "I'm sorry, Mom." 2 words. But they carried the weight of years. "Natalie and I divorced," he said after a moment. 6 months ago. "I'm sorry," I said. He shook his head. "Don't be. She was cheating. We lost the house. I'm renting now." I waited. "I've been in therapy," he continued. "Learning things I didn't want to admit." "Like what?" I asked softly. "That I became someone who thought the world owed him," he said. "Someone who used love as leverage." Tears slipped down his face. "If you'd given me that money," he said, "I'd still be that man." We drank coffee in silence. Then he asked the question. "Why didn't you ever tell me about the trust?" "Your lawyer told you?" "He did. Said I'm approaching 40. I nodded. "Your father wanted you safe," I said. "But strong." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I want to earn it," he said. "Not the money. Your trust." My chest broke open. 6 months later, Tuesday mornings belonged to us. Coffee. Conversation. Quiet healing. He's dating someone new. Emily. A teacher. Practical. Kind. She doesn't care about luxury, only honesty. Last week she met me. "I just want you to know," she said nervously, "I'm not here for money or status." I smiled. "I can see that," I said. "And so can he." After they left, I sat in my study and looked at 2 photographs. One of Daniel's graduation. And one of us last month, smiling, arms around each other, rebuilt. Sometimes love says yes. And sometimes love says no. That no nearly destroyed us. But it also saved him. And it gave us the second chance. Daniel turns 40 next month. Sometimes I catch myself watching him when he doesn't realize it. How he listens now instead of interrupting, how he pauses before speaking, how he checks himself when old habits try to creep back in. Change doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly through consistency. Every Tuesday morning he comes over with coffee from the same local shop. We sit at the kitchen table, sunlight spilling across the wood, talking about work, therapy, life. Sometimes we talk about his father. Sometimes we don't talk at all. And that silence, it's no longer painful. It's peaceful. A few weeks ago, Daniel showed up looking nervous. "I have something to tell you," he said. I smiled. "That usually means you do." He laughed softly. "I met with my lawyer again," he said. "About the trust." I nodded. "He said I've met the conditions," Daniel continued. "No debt. No lawsuits. Stable finances. And reconciliation." He looked at me carefully. I told him I'm not ready to access it yet. My breath caught. "I want to wait," he said. "Not because I don't need help, but because I don't want money to define where I am in life." I reached across the table and held his hand. "Your father would be proud," I said. Daniel swallowed hard. I hope so. Later that afternoon after he left, I walked into my study and sat in the chair I'd occupied for decades, drafting plans, solving problems, building things meant to last. As an engineer, I was taught that the most important part of any structure is the foundation. You can decorate later, add beauty later, impress people later. But if the foundation is weak, everything above it will fail. I realized something then. I hadn't failed as a mother. I had done the hardest part right. I had chosen long-term strength over short-term comfort. I had said no when yes would have been easier. And that no nearly cost me everything. There were nights I questioned myself. Days I felt like a monster. Moments I replayed that conversation over and over, wondering if I could have softened my words, handled it differently, saved us both the pain. But growth rarely comes without discomfort. And love, real love, sometimes requires standing your ground even when your heart is breaking. Last weekend, Daniel brought Emily over again. She helped me clean up after dinner without being asked. She listened more than she spoke. She laughed easily, and when she looked at my son, it wasn't with expectation. It was with respect. As they were leaving, Daniel hugged me tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For not saving me," he said. "So I could learn how to save myself." I stood there long after they drove away, thinking about how close I came to losing him forever. Thinking about how easy it would have been to write a check instead of drawing a boundary. Thinking about how saying no didn't mean I loved him less. It meant I loved him enough to let him grow. I'm Eleanor Harper. I'm 72 years old now. I spent my life building structures meant to stand strong under pressure. And the strongest one I ever helped build wasn't made of steel or concrete. It was my son. Sometimes the most loving word a parent can say isn't yes. Sometimes it's no. And sometimes that no becomes the foundation for everything that comes after.